Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, and with me, of course, is my wing woman, her of positive fandom and the Burnett work. How are you doing on this lovely Saturday evening, my dear?
Lorena, I am enjoying the summer. I am doing well. And I just honestly, this film, Lorena, I can't wait to hear what you think of this film. It is so great to be here on this review with you.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I did peek in on the review you guys did of Oppenheimer over on the Burnett work. Fabulous job. So
Thank you.
I'm so glad you could join me to review this film because I have quite a bit to say about it, and cannot wait to hear again from you how you enjoyed the film. So there's folks that are starting to gradually come in. So before we get started, I'm going to run this. Where's my darn banner? I know I should have did this first. Should have did this first. We are talking Oppenheimer. We probably are going to be dropping spoilers while we talk about it. I mean, the
Yes.
big spoiler isn't really a spoiler if you know who Oppenheimer who he is. So let's see who we have here in the chat. Let's see. I see Kevin Plopper. I love that avatar. Says yo and good to see you, my dear. And let's see, we have Melissa Bell in the chat saying good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Good evening and good to see you here. Good to see you here. And Vulcan lives in here who says good evening. Well, good evening to you, my dear. Very good evening. Let's see. Kevin Plopper says Oppenheimer is as good as Barbie is bad. LOL. Kevin, you know what? We're going to go ahead and actually jump right into this. So I am going to, if I can get my stuff together, Lord,
Me
it's been a
too.
long day. This is from Deadline, Oppenheimer review. Christopher Nolan's epic thriller about the father of the atomic bomb is as frightening as it is brilliant. Now, out of all of the reviews or review headlines that I have seen, this one jives with my opinion of the film the most. For me, Oppenheimer is the father of the atomic bomb. He, along with the likes of Niels Bohr, along with Einstein, are the reason why I had to take some absolutely insane physics and and mathematics when it comes to engineering, and all the changes of everything that we knew about the atom had completely changed due to the Manhattan Project. So his I would have to say his presence, especially with what he did with the Manhattan Project, really had a ripple effect, not only through science and engineering and all of that, but also with the emphasis on those sciences in the United States education, especially in science education. So this guy, he's like one of those greats like Einstein. You hear about them, you don't really know much about them, but then you see a film like this, and it not only puts a face to a name, but it also puts a mindset to a name and how it is to be this man in this point in time in US history.
Absolutely, Lorena. And, suddenly I think that when Oppenheimer had achieved this impressive feat, and of course it was a group of scientists, it's a war effort, right? During war
Mhm.
in the United States, which is something you and I know nothing about. It's our parents and grandparents who were involved in all that. And we hear their stories and we understand what they have to say. But it's really a lot of those people aren't even around anymore. And a film like this, is a reminder of everything that happened during that time period as well. And it's interesting, as you said, Lorena, shaping careers, shaping what people study. Suddenly, quantum physics is cool. Like this is something that people want to do. And, if, as working professionals, you and I, and we're in the sciences, for the most part. And even hearing about this person who is done such incredible world changing work and has had an impact. What is amazing, Lorena, for me at least, is the notion of how unrecognizable he is to maybe our generation and generations going beyond that, and how recognizable another scientist who is equally fantastic, it's not a comparison, but Einstein, who everyone recognizes. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting when we're looking at it from that point of view of, if you had shown me a picture of Robert Oppenheimer before, I would say he looks familiar, but I don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you asked me who Niels Bohr was and all the other scientists that we've studied, I wouldn't have been able to identify them in a picture either. So it is very interesting that this film, and Lorena, this film has been selling out worldwide practically, in New York, in California, I'm sure in Florida where you are. The weekends where all the times that the films are showing, whether it's on IMAX or in standard def, it's selling out, and people want to see this. They don't care that the film is 3 hours. Word of mouth has spread about this film. Lorena, we have so much to talk about with this film.
We most certainly do. And let me welcome a couple more people in the chat before I before I start up a bit more. So I see you guys starting to filter in here some more. Hello, Dylan C, who says, "Hey, Lorena. Hey, her. Well, hello, Dylan C. So good to see you here. Good to see you here. Demogeni, the Lord Commander of the Dark Council, is in the chat. Hello, my dear. Says Reina Creole. Hello there. Well, hello to you. Glad to see you here, my dear. Hope all is going well. Let's see. John Cipolla, hello, my dear, says, I am going to skip the movie. I am reading a 25-plus-hour book on this. Is that American Prometheus? Because
Mhm.
that is right on my Audible
Me
list right
too.
now.
I've gotten halfway through the book, Lorena, and like I said, if you're into science, which we are, it's like it's like butter, like you'll hear different things. You're like, oh yeah, absolutely. But I think when we're looking at, and John makes a good point, you can get it on Audible. It's about 25-hour book. I always speed mine up, so it's like 15, but it's a Pulitzer Prize winning book about the life of Oppenheimer. And what makes it even more amazing is the level of detail that's in this biography is astounding. Certainly, the adaptation from book, at least a half of it that I've read, to the screen
Mhm.
is perfect, especially for people who may not be 100% into science. You don't have to be. This is such a great adaptation screenplay,
Wow.
as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I know a film is really, really good if I do two things. One, the soundtrack, it's just like I just have to buy it. And that's it. It's like I have to buy the soundtrack. And the other is if it's based on a book, I have to it's like I have to read the book because to go back, this is like you said, this is a 3-hour movie. Now when I went, my theater, it was a smaller theater. It wasn't. I purposely did not go into the tourist district to go see it. Those usually sold out because people are there on vacation. They want to go see it. So I went to my hometown, theater, which had a respectable amount of people in there on preview night to go and see it. And I'm like, a 3-hour movie, does this really need to be 3 hours? And am I going to be able to sit through a 3-hour movie? And I'll talk about this in a little bit. When the film opens up, that immediately hooked me because, and I'm trying not to say too much, let's just say the type of people that Oppenheimer was sitting in front of, I have had to sit in front of for a security clearance review.
Mhm,
So that
mhm.
boom, already, I was into it in 3 hours of just, they're saying it's a biography. Biography, but it really truly is a thriller because there's so many things that are going on, and I'm just like, oh, this is good. What's gonna happen, next? And absolutely fabulous. I can't wait to see the quote unquote director's cut because I know there's more that's there, but those 3 hours, they went by so quickly. You know the deal. Hello, and welcome. Says the film nailed on whether Oppenheimer should be rooted or vilified. Maybe he was just a man who wanted to see if his science would actually work. I'm gonna let you take a first crack at this comment.
Yeah, I think that is a good point, and I think I'm just going to be honest with the deal. I am not going to get into a discussion as to whether there was right or wrong, but I think you hit the nail spot on about what the film's intentions are. And remember, the audience that this film is intended for, everyone, let's say over the age of what, 13. I
Hmm.
would say it's intended for an audience of over 13 and over, maybe. And it's supposed to be for all audiences because, Lorena, you and I know that everybody in Earth is going to see this film. Everyone's going to see this. So, since it is considered for a broad audience, they need to cover that. They need to cover what happened to him in before, let's say there's three stages: before the war, during the war, and then after the war. And so
Hmm.
it certainly is not easy to explain. However, I think the film does a great job of explaining what's happened. And there's a payoff at the end for the three themes that I see go through this film. I'm not going to get too much in detail. And
Hmm.
certainly, as a theorist, if you're doing stuff in silico, it's all about the theory. When somebody proves your theory right, you are as pleased as punch. So I think there is a lot of that, a lot of discussion as to whether this will work or that will work. And when someone can go ahead and do a practical application, wow, you were right. Damn, it feels good.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, and I love the part where it's just like theory can only get you but so far. So the engineers basically had to take his theory and boom, let's put it into practice and see what you see how we can do it. And there's actually a scene in the film where they're just like, no, that couldn't work. And and I knew exactly what he's going to do. He's going to the board and he's writing the proof, and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my god, some of this stuff looks so familiar. That's something that I'm used to seeing. Also, when they realize at one point that it is very possible that this bomb could set off a chain reaction. When they're talking about it and they're discussing it with the math and they're talking about what it approaches, I'm like, that's infinity. That's not good. That's not good. And that was one of the things that they were worried about because they literally stopped. We're passing around. Everyone's looking like, I don't know. This could possibly, be a problem. But it was very realistic, and I agree. I like how they presented Oppenheimer as this is who he is. Yeah, he had some you know I would say communist sympathies. Let's put it this way. That's they make no bones about it. They put it out there. But he really was about getting what was in his head out there and seeing if it would work by any means necessary. Well, to the point, to the detriment of his own physical, mental, and psychological help. And not only if his science would actually work, but the repercussions of what could happen now that he had unleashed this along with his team. So I thought that was presented very well and did something that a lot of films do not do these days. Leave it up to the audience to make the decision about how you see uh, Oppenheimer. To
That's
just
right.
put it out there and let you make up your mind.
they're not telling us, and it is refreshing. And I do just want to mention something that you already mentioned, and I feel like I have to just reiterate it only because of the importance. um did you want to read that first before I go further? Go ahead.
Oh no, you can go ahead. I'm going to put that up there since Deranged Lunatic has it up. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the importance of the engineers. And of course, we see the Army Corps of Engineers. We're kind of taking this for granted, that we're seeing these soldiers. And of course, they are engineers, which means that they're not just picking up a rifle. They're doing all sorts of stuff. They're builders, they're sappers. It goes far beyond the scope of what we even saw, let's say. But we do see a
Mm-hmm.
heavy presence of these engineers. Some of these quantum physicists are also engineers in their own right. Obviously, Oppenheimer himself is a self-proclaimed, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an experimenter, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's a theorist, so maybe he's not hands-on, but every engineer I know, like, they get their hands dirty. This is something that I think is incredibly important. And
Yeah.
it also could not have been accomplished without the engineering side. So I did just want to mention how important it was to have those minds saying, well, that's great that you said that, but do you realize what we have to do to get there?
Mm-hmm. And they had to change like the whole I don't want to say payload system, but say,
Yes.
switch to basically get that detonation to happen. They're like, well, what if we do it this way? No, 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 no. That's going to take up too much packaging. You hear the discussion. And I've been in meetings like that, like you probably have too, where you have the people who throw out the theory and they prove the theory, but it's like, okay, that's the theory. But in reality, this is what we have. No, we don't have this particular amount of material. We're going to have to use, something else. And just all of that discussion between the engineers and the scientists, I absolutely loved it.
I,
It's
I want to say one more
you're
thing. I'm
rooting.
sorry, Lorena.
Oh,
And I
it's
do
okay.
have to say it. Here's the other part. There's a scene in the film where they have a fishbowl and a wine glass. And
Uh-huh. Yeah.
perfect example of engineering as far as I'm concerned, but done in a way that, as I said, I'm not an engineer, I'm a scientist, but I'm not an engineer, but I could understand this right away. And if I can understand it, anyone who sees this film can understand it. They needed to fill the bowl with the correct amount of radioactive isotopes. But how do we explain this? Well, so far they're making it and they just keep filling it and they say, oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
closer and closer.
Like this is what we did today.
What a fantastic way to show. Now, I'm sure, who knows whether it was actually done, but it was done for the viewer, for us. And those very specific details in this film happen again and again and again. I can't tell you how excited and happy I was to see things like that for someone like me.
I loved it. I loved it. I'm like, okay, that much. All right. It's gonna be a little while before we can get, all that material, together because they had, the balls of material. And then when they finally had it together, you saw them putting pieces of the bomb together.
And we needed to see that. We
We
needed
really did.
to understand that.
You really did have to. So I'm glad they did that. I like that illustration. Thank you for bringing it up. Deranged Lunatic for $1.99. Thank you so much for that super chat, my dear. I appreciate it. Says Oppenheimer is based on American Prometheus. Yes, and that book is one that I have to get, and I have to read. This movie, if considering what you're telling me about that book, it's a miracle that they got this into 3 hours. And I just can't wait to read it. Because one of the things that I loved about this film again is American ingenuity, and not just Americans, but when we would get other people and other scientists from other countries, and they would come here because we have the resources, and they all work together that way. It's you know just amazing. We were building stuff, building things that had never been done before. Hey, Memes of Destruction, thank you for that $4.99 super chat, my dear. I appreciate it. I hope you are doing good. Hope your channel's doing well, folks. You got to go to subscribe to Memes of Destruction. He's got some great stuff on his channel. He says, hi, friends. Now, when we may ignite the Earth's atmosphere, perhaps we should be wary. Love, love. Yeah, when they said that, yeah, we could ignite the Earth's atmosphere. I'm like, oh, shoot, that's not good.
It was, they needed to verbally say that. I didn't know about that. Obviously I learned after seeing the film that that was a fear, one of
Mm-hmm.
the possibilities of the outcome of the experiment. Usually it's like, I don't want to blow myself up. Oh, wait a minute. You're going to blow up the whole earth. Totally different approach to orders of magnitude, Lorena, and getting people to understand those things
Yes.
in a way that they can understand it. And they didn't weigh you down too much. It was
No.
done so
I
beautifully.
I'm forgetting the scene. Was it in yes, when they were talking about the tonnage, the tonnage of explosions. And they're just like, it's kilotons isn't gonna do it. Okay, well then we're going to megatons. I'm like, yeah. And that's a big deal. I tell people that's analogous to, memory storage when we went from kilobytes to megabytes
Mhm.
to, you know, gigabytes. Who thought that we would be going to terabytes and eventually it's going to be petabytes, stuff that levels that I learned in physics. I'm just like, we're never going to reach that level. Well, guess what? Here we are. Here we are. Yes, love engineers. I tell you, I love it. We had this saying when I was in grad school in engineering. It's like scientists discover what is, engineers create what has never been.
Mhm.
And love that
That's
saying.
incredibly well said. My best friend, who's an engineer, always says it's a solution to a problem. That's how he just approaches. I think he approaches his life that way. I do not, but I think it is very interesting when you are looking at it from that point of view. You're going to get things done because you understand
Absolutely.
the goal ahead of you.
Yeah, you do. You do. To quote that line in Apollo 13, failure is not an option. It's just not. This mind intentionally left blank. That's funny, and I love that. Love that kitty. Reminds me of Professor X when he was little kitten.
And I have a comment to describe this. And before, and I'm sure, Lorraine, you did this too. So I know it's not just me, but before this film came out, I watched the Manhattan TV series. I also watched a film called Trinity and Beyond, which was made in 1995. It's a documentary about the Trinity experiment. And of course,
Hmm.
many experiments after that. It's narrated by William Shatner. And certainly, after hundreds of tests after, let's say, the delivery of the two bombs that were dropped on cities. After that, it also explains and has the video. You can actually watch the real Trinity experiment, but
Hmm.
you can't see the Trinity experiment. Let's say if they had to choose one bomb scene, maybe they couldn't show every bomb scene. If they had to choose one, and that's how it had to look, this is the bomb scene dramatization of it that you want to see in this film.
Oh, amazing! Because I know that just blew my mind when I saw it. Even like the mini, it was. I love how they did that. Even like the mini experiments that they were showing, they were like, okay, and then they blew it up, and then they
Like,
didn't hear
oh,
anything. Like a duck, it's about, and you just saw the wave coming. They're like, yeah, we got to get further back. We got to get back further from this. But yeah,
and
yeah.
it, and it's interesting too because we were brought in, we were part of the team in this film in a way that I don't think I've ever seen. I didn't know that the countdown clock was analog, or
Hmm.
looks
Yeah.
analog, or maybe it was digital or whatever it was. I
Yeah, it was analog. It reminds me of I don't want to call it a relic, but it is true. It actually was one at NASA at the old firing room, which they used for like Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs that they use. That is analog, where it flips. It's like an analog countdown
Mhm.
that happens. So that gave me some really good flashbacks. I'm like, ooh, I remember that.
And what about the fact that, and I think what's interesting for me is that, and it is true, they could have had more, bomb situations. They could have done that in the film. I'm certainly not saying, you know, who the other YouTubers may have said it could have had more. There's certainly nothing wrong with saying that. One thing I do want to mention, Lorena, is that while we unfortunately had Nolan give us this incredible and perhaps undescribable Trinity experiment, visually and from sound and
Mm-hmm.
in, the characters' emotions. It was supposed to also represent going into the atomic age, and it was supposed to be incredibly overwhelming because it was, but also the realization that the world had changed. And you could have added some more explosions and things if you wanted to, but that one needed to be the climax. It needed to be the climax for what they were striving for, and I think that's why we didn't see as many going forward.
And I kind of have to say this, Grace Randolph, bless her heart. We're not talking about, what would you say? We're not talking TNT. We're not talking uh, grenades. We're not talking about, you know, shoulder fired rockets. We're talking about a nuclear bomb and a nuclear test. And in reality, they wouldn't be just dropping nuclear bombs, on the regular, because one, how much plutonium, and they showed us how much of that material that they needed, that stuff that you have to mine and refine and get to that grade of nuclear grade plutonium that's needed. So from an engineering perspective, that made sense. If you saw how they started, first there was a really, really tiny one that just boop. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that actually worked. We got that to work. And then they put it, outside. They tried that one. It had a little bit, more. And then they tried another one. And then that one, they're like, okay, we need to really move back. So by the time that they came up with the Trinity one that we saw, we were well prepared for that. In reality, that's what it was. When you saw it and you see like just the mushroom cloud and then the ensuing clouds that happen. And I love how I think they made you wait like maybe 5 minutes or so. And then the sound wave came at you. And that is very, very, very realistic, because when the shuttle would go up, when I would see shuttle launches, you could see it, the engines, you could see the rockets go up, everything. And then a minute or so later, then the sound wave comes at you.
God, that must have been so cool.
It was so freaking cool. It was so
Sound,
cool.
sound and the visuals, let's say aside from the actors, were definitely characters, very important characters in this film.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Nostradamus for $10. Thank you so much, my dear, for that generous super chat. Says, I'm here for the bombs and the bombshells doing this review. Well, thank you so
You.
much. You're such a sweet talker. I appreciate that. Appreciate that so very much. Thank you. Thank you. All your super chats, to tell you, they help me do so many great things with the channel. So I appreciate it so very much. Let's see. I'm trying to go through. You guys are such amazing comments. I'm trying to go through all of them. Dimaj and I, yeah, 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 it is. But I'm just gonna say Ryan Gosling. Keep your eye on Ryan Gosling. I'm just saying. Well, you're probably gonna keep your eye on Margot Robbie too. But hello, Helena J says sorry was chasing chickens. I've done that before. There's some fast moving little boogers, that's for sure. Wholesome DJ Aftershock, Barbie, Oppenheimer. I truly enjoyed Oppenheimer. From beginning to end. Uh, I love cerebral films, and this was definitely one of them. So I absolutely,
Yeah, and
absolutely loved
I,
it.
I don't think I know that they're being marketed at the same time, and they're both going to make a ton of cash. There's
Oh
no
yeah,
doubt about this, but I don't see them together. This is just me. I cannot put them in the same sentence. Sorry. One is making
no,
movies and the
it's
other one is something that changed the entire planet.
yeah, Yeah, it's like there's two sides of my brain. The side that's kind of like, just we need something to just look at and laugh at and whatever. That's Barbie. But Oppenheimer, with Oppenheimer, that's, I mean, I can't even, I keep talking about it a lot, but the result of what he did affected just how I studied science and engineering. And I've seen, you know, the modern things built on the work that this man and other scientists and engineers have done. So I have a special affinity to Oppenheimer. Hey, Darth Plato says hit the like. Well, thank you so much. Yes, please do hit that like button, folks. I appreciate it. Unexpected Fire is here. Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. And TD is here. There you go. There you go. And Jeffrey Nelson is here. Says, good evening, Miss Creole. Well, good evening to you. Good evening to you. Let's see. Darth Plato. Hello. 528 nuclear bombs have been tested since 1945, not including underground tests, over 2,000 after overall.
Because, as I said, and I'm sorry for the crudity of this description, the movie depicts a time where you go from the pre-atomic age to the atomic age, which is what we're in, and we are in balls deep now.
Yeah.
So every bit of our existence has been exposed to all this. We don't know a world without it. But can you imagine? And I think that what they were trying to do with this film is to explain and to show a world that did not understand wholly what this would mean. They knew they wanted the war to end. This is certainly not anything I can fault anyone, because I don't know what it's like to be alive during a war, but our parents and grandparents know. And they remember this, but it wasn't our reality. So it was a very different mindset. When you're at war, when you're in a country that's at war, your brain chemistry is different. Your whole life is different. You can't pursue your dreams the way you want to. It has such a profound effect over you. So I think that they did a good job trying to demonstrate this world that we know existed, but there aren't as many people around to even tell this story anymore, Lorena.
No, there really isn't. Like you and I and a lot of other people in the chat, all we know is a world that where nuclear power has always existed. It's we can't imagine a world where it has not. I remember my grandfather who fought in World War II. After after they won victory over in the European theater, they were going to send him to the Pacific. They were going to send him and everybody else over to the Pacific, and he did not want to go. He said he felt that if he got sent to the Pacific theater, he was not going to come back.
Yeah.
So once they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he said that basically saved my life and the life of a bunch of other soldiers. And that's what Truman said, played by Gary Oldman. I did not know that was him.
Isn't he great?
I
He's
did not know that was Gary Oldman.
Lorena, we are not here to judge what our, fathers and grandparents went through. We are not here for that. I think the film explains what the situation is, and we are not putting any judgment on the people who made sacrifices of their life, of their time. They've given up so much in this past war. We are not here to say what is right or wrong. I think, if anything, like you said, Lorena, this allows you to make your own conclusions. But I am grateful for the sacrifices that your parents, my parents, and our grandparents made during the war, which must have been the most difficult time ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Hey, Hannibal Graham says, hey, yo. Hey, yo. And yes, very few people. I had to stop there for a minute. There's some things I know that I can never share, but you are very right where when it comes to that.
And what you're kind of alluding to, Lorena, is the fact that, and I think that they also do a good job in the film about this, is that at that time, most people got their news. There was no television. People didn't have TVs in their homes, really. You went to the theater for movie tone news. You got the newspaper. Maybe you listened to the radio. Can you imagine that that's where people got their news from? And what a different time we have now. But to make a person understand what would happen if this was used would would be kind of like trying to explain to you or I what time travel is going to look like. Hey, come on. I can bring you and Lorraine. You and I are going to go back to the 80s, Lorraine. We're going to have a good old time. But there are going to be people who are going to look at time travel and say, I can't handle this. I'm not cool with this. I don't understand what's going on. And I think the majority of the world would have said that. They did not understand this atomic energy. They knew what it could do, but I don't think they knew everything. And it's okay that they didn't know, but the magnitude of what it was changed their lives forever, changed everyone's lives forever.
Yeah, the world was totally different. This was a type of destructive power that had never been seen before. And again, we're used to a world where nuclear arms are commonplace, but with this generation, they really didn't. They knew that they were going someplace that they had never been, and that's why I love the scene that we see in the beginning, when not in the beginning, but further on in the film, where he takes that calculation to Einstein, and they talk about what's about to be unleashed if this goes forward, and basically, can you live with that? Because they had no idea. It was all theory, but all the math was pointing to something absolutely terrifying, yet uh never been seen. It's just like, I have to do this. I have to do this. That's why I love, in the beginning of the movie, they tell the Greek mythology story of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods, and as his punishment, he's basically up on chained in Hades because of it. But fire was just, it changed humans' lives forever. Aiken, hello for that 7.99 super chat. 7.99 Australian super
Thank
chat. I
you.
appreciate that, my dear. Appreciate that. And appreciate the 30 of you who are in here watching. We're chatting about the film Oppenheimer, just shooting the breeze about this amazing Christopher Nolan film that both of us have seen, and some of you in the chat have seen. Aiken says Japanese people have said that they were saved from the starvation that happened because the emperor and the governor could not back down because they would lose face. Yes, this is another thing that I heard. From what I understand, the emperor was looked at as if he was God in Japan. Um, So it wasn't like, well, can people see, what the emperor was doing? It's like, no, 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 no. To them, the emperor was a god. So if they were tapped to give their life for the cause, they would go ahead and do it. And there are stories about just how deadly the Japanese soldiers were, because their oath was to their emperor. And it was crazy. It was completely, I want to say completely different, but Japan was one of the Axis powers. You have to remember that, one of the Axis powers, and was not like here. It was a completely different mindset. And the first bomb on Hiroshima did not change the emperor's mind. So they had to drop a second one. And if I remember correctly, after they dropped the second one, the emperor actually got on the radio, and people had never heard his voice.
Wow.
He had to basically tell them the war is over. And if they didn't hear it from the emperor, they were not going to believe it. But yeah, that's what they said happened. Let's see. You guys have so much great comments in here. We're trying to get to all of them. We're talking Oppenheimer.
A film that I think
Li-
is going to make $1 billion, a film that I think is going to be film of the year. I think there are going to be many Oscar nominations for this. I think the screenplay was great, the actors were great, the performance was great, the visuals, the sound, just everything in this, the costuming, Lorena, the location sets. They had to recreate how everything looked. I felt like I was there.
I did. Even the shots, like when were they at Princeton? I think I'm like, all that looks, familiar.
Yeah.
Hannibal Grimm, are you talking about the Nixie clock? Yes, I believe that's what I'm talking about. Yes, yes. I did not see Fat Man and Little Boy, although I'd heard about it, so I knew what it was. I just didn't get a chance to see
I'm
the
gonna,
movie.
I'm gonna be doing a watch party of it on Thursday, I think. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, on Positive Fandom and the Burn Network, I'm going to be doing a watch party with Darth Plato, Fat Man, Little Boy. It stars Paul Newman and John Cusack, and I think that's who's in it. Yeah, it's an amazing film. I haven't seen it in ages.
oh, okay. Well, cool, cool. Yes, we just talked about that. How long it took to get the uranium for the first
Lorraine,
bomb.
if they verbally said, "Well, we don't have enough uranium," and that's it. No, you know what I mean? Like, but seeing the visual,
Mhm.
for some people, you have different types of learners. You could not deny that that made sense. It's like, oh yeah. I think it was very interesting. I just really love that they did that. They had the two manufacturing plants, or three, right? Lorraine, one was in Ohio, I think one was in
Mhm.
Washington, wherever it was, and they were artificially manufacturing it. I guess maybe from another isotope, maybe a non radioactive isotope. Maybe it was just an isotope, and then it wasn't radioactive, and then they irradiated
Mhm.
it or whatever. However, the process is also an incredible feat of engineering.
Absolutely. And again, Christopher Nolan, he's wonderful at this. Showing you instead of telling you, making the reference where, you know, we need this represents how much uranium we need to get. This is how much we got today. And they continue to show you that. So they don't tell you, hey, we got a shipment today. Hey, we got a shipment today. No, they show you. And it's interspersed in between all of the progress, the struggle to get those scientists to Los Alamos, how the whole town basically winds up being built, the arguments and disagreements between the engineers and the scientists, just the ones that are there, what's going on. A woman who, she came there and they said, oh well, you can go put her to work, I think in transcription or something. She was like, I didn't go to I forget which college it was, but she had an advanced scientific degree. And he's Oppenheimer's like, okay, put him with the other the other scientists. But I thought that was interesting, and I love that they did that,
Hmm.
because one of the things that people tend to forget is how many women they
Hmm.
put
Yeah,
specifically with calculating things,
yeah,
because women are very detail oriented. So they had them doing a whole lot of those calculations, because no calculators now.
exactly. There's only slide. What is, like, a slide rule that you
Slide rule.
use.
And
um,
I don't even know if did they have it then? I think so.
and you know something, Lorraine, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that lady, that doctor, was there through the entire process. They showed her. They didn't name every single scientist, but you could see she was visibly in the film. She was there for all of it. You saw her
Oh,
constructing it. Wasn't it great, guys? When we got to see them put it together like a puzzle. And then I started
yes.
to realize, I said, they want you to see the building of this, to understand. And guys, this stuff took so long and so many man hours, uh, people doing an incredible amount of work. And it was three themes that were going on at the same time in this movie, everybody, which we're not going to get into, but there were three legitimate ways, the way the story was told, Lorena, and they build it up to this climax. And you do get a payoff for all three of those areas. This is just Um, Robert Downey Jr. was remarkable in this too.
He was absolutely fantastic. This is probably the best thing that I've seen him in since Tropic Thunder.
I thought it was his best performance too. I think Tropic Thunder, he carried a lot of that film. And this one, certainly, Lorena, for 3 hour films, Cillian Murphy has a lot of face time, but so does Robert Downey Jr. The performances we're seeing, I think they could even take this and adapt it to a play, at some point. But this really was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And I am going to also say this, and I know that this is based on the biography, which is
Mhm.
almost 99% fact. But as a film, of course, they have to take some artistic license. Certain things may not
Right.
happen in the exact order that we're seeing them, but that's okay. We're going to give them that artistic license. They have to tell the story so it makes sense to you as you're watching it. You can't kind of like, go back and say, well, remember when we told you that? Like it doesn't flow nicely for someone who's watching it. And they had to think about this so that when you got to that mark, I think it was maybe an hour and 23 minutes in, where you're at the point where this climax is happening, you're kind of understanding what's going to happen. You have this feeling, this gut feeling, something's going to happen, and you're not so surprised. It's interesting. There is more to the story than just, let's say, the Trinity experiment.
Absolutely. You have, when they show you in the beginning, when Oppenheimer is there and he's reading this statement, and he's there because they're calling into question whether or not they should renew his security clearance. And you can see just how, um, well, basically, just just how important this event is, and it's already as if everything is stacked, against him. You go like back in the past to see what it was like for him at school, him being basically a very somewhat competent, no, actually not. Well, everybody's broken something in the chemistry lab. Come on now, everybody's done that, from time to time. You go to that. You go to the confirmation hearings that Strauss is stressed out about, and wanted to make sure this has to go smoothly, and so you have that going on, and also how the progression of the atomic bomb was going, especially since they're trying to beat the Germans in order to create the atomic bomb. So there's so many things that are going on in this film, but it's wrapped up beautifully at the end. And I have to tell you, as great as the performances were, as amazing as the special effects were, as wonderful as the costuming and everything is, the soundtrack for this film is off the charts. And I mean, emotional buildups, especially with the sound. That's another one. This film better win an
Sound
Oscar.
editing, right?
Sound and sound editing, because the way that they use the sound, especially in the one scene, where, of course, Trinity was successful. They dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was successful. So when they had the quote unquote pep rally, and the way that the sound was used to put you into Oppenheimer's head and what he was feeling, and then the music, and then what he was seeing, because they kind of intercut a couple of visuals of what he thought the destruction would happen or had happened in Japan because of the bomb. That sound, it it pulls as much at you emotionally as the performances do. And I want to say this soundtrack is almost as good as something that John Williams would have done.
Wow.
It is on that level. I mean, John Williams, he's like OG, so he's kind of fade into the sunset. Hans Zimmer is kind of in that gap for right now, but Granson, he's coming up right behind Hans Zimmer. This is absolutely amazing.
It reminds me of the 2001 Space Odyssey sound editing and transcript, which had, soundtrack, which had to have an incredible soundtrack, right? It had to blow you away because it had visuals that kind of needed a lot of the soundtrack to and let's say sound editing to get the point across. And this film
Hmm.
certainly was no different, Lorena, in that regard. And I believe that the person who did the soundtrack or the sound editing also worked. I think he worked on The Mandalorian, didn't he?
He did. He did. He worked on The Mandalorian, and he was also Childish Gambino's college roommate.
Not a surprise. Not a surprise there. Yeah, This Is America. I love Childish Gambino.
I tell you. I tell you. Yeah, the sequences convey how Oppenheimer's brain works. Loved it. And if you have a scientific mind, that's why I love the attitude that they showed him, because scientists can really seem as if they know everything about the world and you know nothing. It's just it's just a certain attitude. It's like with engineers, I always assume that I'm right. You have to prove me wrong. I'm not wrong until you can prove me
Given
wrong.
given alternate theory,
Yeah, yeah.
go
It's just like
ahead.
it's like go ahead and give me something different, or it's just like, yeah, you're saying something, but can you prove it? And they're already skeptical. We're like, okay, when are you going to run into this roadblock, that roadblock? It's never, a straight line. So I love how they showed his type of personality, which is very in tune with a whole lot of scientists I know. Uh it's just part of their DNA. It just is. It's not a judgment. It just is. You just know when you meet some of these people that they're
And
scientists.
Lorena, just like any person on Earth, they were very clear to show that Oppenheimer needed intimacy and that it was an important part of his life. And we saw that, whether it was either before he was married or whatever the situation was, they made a point of showing him pursuing women because he needs intimacy. And I'm so glad that they put that in there. It didn't kind of, wash it away or push it away as if
Hmm.
he wasn't, that wasn't important to him as a man. It was very important. In the book, they talk about how, yeah, maybe he needs a woman, like when he starts to, this poison apple thing, it's not a secret, it's a famous story as to why they
Oh,
think he
I
might have
didn't
done
know
that.
that.
Yeah, as to why they think, why was he, well, he was upset, but they also say, well, maybe he's also missing something else. By now, he should have been with someone. He has that desire. Let's go ahead. I think that was really important to show in the film, and we do see a number of different situations that happen with that, but it certainly was not absent from his life.
Hmm. Yeah, they did show that. And I also love the scenes between Cillian Murphy and Emily Blunt. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
they were so good. They were so.
She's getting a nomination. Florence Pugh, Cillian Murphy, definitely Robert Downey Jr. And the stellar performances. Matt Damon, Lorena, this was one of those moments where, and I say this was another one for us, for let's say the viewer, where Oppenheimer is trying to recruit a scientist to come to Los Alamos, and he says, "Oh well, where the hell is it?" He's like, "Where the hell is Los Alamos?" He says, "In New Mexico." He says, "I don't know why I can't leave my family." No, 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 you bring your whole family with you.
Yeah.
And the guy saying, "Yeah, no, it's not worth it. It's not, doesn't seem that important. Like, what is it for?" And Matt Damon goes, "This is the most important thing in the whole fucking world." And I was like, yes,
I
yes.
love that.
And that scene may not have occurred. It didn't even matter. It was for us. It was for us to realize how intense this situation was, how desperate it is. You can read it in a book, but seeing Matt Damon's performance of that, commander, that, Army Corps of Engineer commander was
Hmm.
so profound when he belted that out. It was for us to understand, for the viewer to understand exactly what was at stake here. It was the most important thing in the whole fucking world.
It sure was. It sure was. I saw one, CJ. I saw one. It was okay.
In the book, they talk about how there were restrictions in admissions for Jewish people and Negroes at the time
Yes,
into
that's another thing.
into institutions. And with those types of restrictions, I'm not saying it's 100% restricted, but let's just say that there were quotas and things that prevented people from applying and being able to go into certain things at that time. And they do mention that in the book in detail, which they didn't have to do, but they did want you to know that was also another obstacle for many.
Hmm. Absolutely. If you go back and you watch the film Hidden Figures, one of
Yes.
the engineers, they couldn't even attend the college that they wanted to go to for this advanced study. Literally, she had to get a letter and then go and basically say, the space program is dependent on you letting me in this class. And I think she had to go to court or something to get that done. That was actually true. That was actually very true. Let's see. Okay, Darth Plato just verified what I'd said. Yeah. Japanese army tried to assault the imperial palace to take the radio broadcast, which was recorded. Yeah. That did that
Wow.
whew, I heard that story. I was like, what?
Wow.
Sage of Roca Seca. Hello. I don't think I've seen you here in my chat, so welcome. Since it's a lot more dramatic than that. The emperor had to stave off a last minute coup to make that broadcast. The military didn't want to give up even after Nagasaki. Dang.
Wow.
I didn't know that. Wow. Thank you for telling me that. I tell you, this stuff is amazing to know. Darkwing Duck says, does it qualify for the Oscars due to their DEI rules? Something tells me they're going to be like, what DEI when it comes to Oppenheimer? Watch what DEI? What?
I think that by the time the Oscars comes around next year, Lorena, those DEI rules may still be around, but I don't believe it's going to have any effect over the nominations of this film. I think this film will not only be nominated, but I think it will sweep like 5 or 6 Oscars, including Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting
Mm-hmm.
Actress, Best Screenplays, Best Sound Editing, Best Cinematography, Best what's the other one? Production Design. I think it's going to win
Production,
all.
costume design,
Yes.
sound,
Mhm.
original screenplay,
Mhm.
original score.
Mhm.
It is going to sweep
It's gonna get
the
everything.
Oscars.
There
It's
hasn't been
going to get
anything
everything.
like this, right, Lorena? There hasn't been anything like this. We've been waiting for this. This was the hit that I've been waiting for, and I didn't know it.
You know what? I agree with you on that. And this was a film that I didn't pay that much attention to. And then I think something I was watching in 3D, and they were showing the previews, and they showed it for Oppenheimer, and my jaw just dropped with just how they put the trailer together, the practical effects that you saw, all that kinetic movement, which we find out later on that's like what Oppenheimer sees. I'm just like, this is a huge scale film. I'm like, 3 hours. Okay, I'll give it a chance because these effects, and they're all practical effects, they are not CGI, and that is the difference because
God, it
it
looks so
is.
good.
I can't even tell. I think I have seen, probably seen it in movies and other places, like video of the Trinity test that's going on. Everything. It looks so good. I'm telling you, it's going to sweep the Oscars. And if it doesn't, folks are going to riot because this film is literally, I would go back and see it again. I actually want to go back and see it in a proper IMAX theater because IMAX theater closest to me, not really. I need to go, go to another one. It is that good. 3 hours, and you're just like, immersed. There's so much going on, and it's such entertainment, which is what we've been missing. Even though we have a good idea about this history, it is just straight 3 hours of just entertaining you. Go to the bathroom before you sit down. You're not gonna gonna wanna leave because you feel like you're gonna miss something.
Mhm.
And memes, yeah, backs me up. OG computers were mostly women back in the day. Yes, I don't have you seen those like old photos like in the 40s there were just rooms of women just doing computations.
Yeah, and I didn't understand it, and when I say I didn't understand it, I realized that they needed to have a certain workforce, a certain number of maybe 100, 200 women just
Mhm.
dedicated to this. They were the adding and subtracting machines. They would double check calculations, they would triple check them. And then
Yep.
even, and we actually even heard it in obviously in identifying feature, not a, what's the film, the one with the women who did the
Oh,
calculations.
Hidden Figures.
Hidden
Yes.
Figures. I said identified. It's a different movie. Hidden Figures. There's even a part. I think it might have been Chuck. One of the astronauts says, hey, darling. I think he's Southern. Hey, darling, can you come check my figures for me before I go up on space now? Something like that. Like how charming like those Southern
Yeah. Yeah.
officers are. You're like, how you doing there, darling? And you're like, I'm great. How are you?
Mm.
Like he actually said, he's like, I'm kind of hoping that you'll check the before they shoot me up there.
Yeah.
And for him to be that bold to say that uh, says a lot.
I love that part of the film. Unexpected Fire says that soundtrack is off the chain. Reaction. Yes it is. I'm not underselling this
It's
at
very clever.
all. I'm not overselling this. This soundtrack, literally, you could just put it on and just be transported. It is some absolutely beautiful, beautiful, emotional, powerful music in this soundtrack. I just love it. I just saw Chef Nation. I see you. This is good evening, beautiful people. Just got back from Barbenheimer over 5 hours of cinema.
Oh,
Wow, you did it in one day.
I
Oh,
couldn't. After I saw Oppenheimer, I was like, I can't see Barbie after this right now. I can't.
I personally am because I had split it over 2 nights because I saw the Barbie as like a special event. So that came out like on a Wednesday. So I went with the rest of the Pink Army, to go and see it. And then I saw Oppenheimer the next evening, and I needed that. I totally needed that to sit through a film that I want to say they undersold it
It
in a
has been
way.
undersold. It's a blockbuster film. It's the blockbuster hit of the summer. And we haven't seen a historical film done so well in such a long time. And I think that there was a lot of freedom here. First of all, and I should mention this, that the book has a shitload of material in it. Like it's got a lot in there. There's a lot in there.
Mhm.
So you could have presumably made three-hour films out of this book. That's how much material was in it. But regardless of that fact, it couldn't have been easy to create this in 3 hours. So it took an incredible mind. And of course, Nolan wrote the screenplay, the adapted screenplay, right, Lorena?
Mhm. Yeah, I believe he did.
He's an effing genius. This was one of the best things I've ever seen, and I think that we kind of need this. We need to know, and and I know it's a thorny topic, but we need to be proud of the history of this country as well, and acknowledge, as I said, the sacrifice of all the men and the women, but a
Mhm.
lot of men who lost their lives during this time period so that we can have the world we have today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hello, Big Apple Mary. I don't think I've seen you here in my chat before, but hello, hello, hello. Says, hey girl, I just got out of that movie. I couldn't sit still, too heavy. I had a headache by the end of the movie. It is a heavy film. There are, I want to say, what some of the scenes, there's kind of like a lot of quick cuts that can make you a bit disoriented. Um, think like when we saw the KGF, the first one, it kind of gave me flashbacks.
Baby and the hand and the up
Yeah,
above the water. It's like,
so
you
cool.
know, yeah.
So cool. But those fast cuts, it can make you kind of
Well,
like
that's true. That is
disoriented.
true.
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw it. I was kind of like, can y'all slow down a little bit? I'm pretty sure that they did it in order to like enhance the reaction, but those they kind of throw me off a little bit. Phantos 5692, hello, hello, hello. Thanks for being here. Says, can you imagine being so fervent about something that you would literally turn against your own leader to hold it? Wow.
Yeah.
Something else, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I think that it while it may not necessarily have been shown in the film, there was so much that was shown in this film, and of course, it is from Oppenheimer's. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. I didn't know this, and it's not obviously. I think everybody else on the planet knows except me. Like it takes me a while to hook onto something, so just you got to give me some cut me some slack here. There are certain parts of the film that are in black and white, and there are certain parts of the film that are in color. And
Mm-hmm.
apparently they mean something. And some of you who are in the chat already know this. I think the black and white parts of the film are from the point of view of Strauss, and the color are from the point of Oppenheimer. Did you know this?
I
I
didn't know it at the time. I knew there was something kind of important to it, but that part didn't really hit me actually until you mentioned. I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of thought that, but didn't. It was so subtle that I didn't even really consider that. So that's actually really interesting that his was in black and white. Perhaps that's how Strauss saw things, as black and white. And with
hmm,
Oppenheimer, there's so much that's going on. It can't be, black and white.
yeah, and so I didn't know that, and I only found out after a bunch of people told me yesterday. So, but even something like that, Lorena, um, the detail and the consideration of telling a movie that has more than one point of view in it. And we talked about this before, and how we don't always see that, and here we're seeing it in a film.
Hmm.
Certainly very unique decision. um it's nice to see sometimes more than one point of view.
Yes. And again, they wrap it up so nicely. I'm not going to spoil it because once you see it, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And I have to give Nolan credit cuz I did not see it coming. I thought it was something throwaway, just incidental, that it didn't really mean anything, when it turns out that it actually meant everything. And PD York says, yes, this is Nolan's best film. Every film he made was leading up to this moment. And I would have to 100% agree. Tenant was the last of his films that I saw, and I wasn't too happy with it compared to his other films. But this one is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. And I think the second probably would be The Dark Knight. But this is definitely the first number one for me. I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely loved it. Let's see. Chef Nation said what I was talking about earlier in the stream. I really hope there's a director's cut of this film. I need more. I want the 4K steel case of this film. I want every extra behind the scenes interviews, history. I just want it all with this film. This is the type of big budget Hollywood films that we used to get. Not big budget was just to spend money, but the resulting product. It's just you just want to sit and immerse yourself in it and catch things that you didn't see before because it's so entertaining.
It is the quality that we've been looking for. It hits all the marks in regards to the story and the execution of it, the cinematography, all of these elements I don't see any deficiencies. I'm sure at some point, you and I will look back at this and perhaps see something that we think might have or could have been done differently. But honestly, right now, Lorena, I can't fault it for anything. I mean, I'm thinking this is. I give this film a 10. I do.
You know, I'm going to have to. I really am, because I didn't see, when I'm not thinking, when all I am is just immersed in it, and nothing is like tripping my brain, like, no, that wouldn't happen, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work. Everything made sense. The math that they were talking about made sense. The practical tests that they did made sense, even down to the analog equipment that they were using, that made sense. Even what I call the boiler room, where he's, up for his security clearance renewal, when they're asking yeah, that is a very, very tough process, I can tell you, as someone who's gone through it several times. They really showed how intense that can get. And it's just such an amazing film. I love how they tried it. There's even a scene where they're arguing with the one female scientist. They're like, we don't know what kind of effect that this will have on the female
I
reproductive
love it.
system. I'm like, yeah, you might want to look up Marie Curie. That didn't turn out too good for her. But I was like, that actually makes sense, them talking about that. um it was just wonderful. Absolutely, absolutely wonderful.
And I think that she kind of said something like, "Well, something, you guys are more exposed than I am, and you have more direct exposure."
Yeah, oh, that was funny. I literally laughed out loud. I was cracking up.
But they had respect for her. This was not, it was not depicted in a way that was disrespectful.
No.
They're equals here. This was she was, as I said, a huge part of the team. She was there of
Hmm.
the date of the detonation. She was part of the team that built the device, if you will. It
Hmm.
certainly was depicted so well. It was like being there, and it was scary. Like it was dark, which is not. I wouldn't want to be out there at nighttime like that, or in the middle of the morning. And apparently
Hmm.
they'd been up for a long time. They were in a deadline. Certainly, um, there was a lot of pressure on this team.
Oh, did you remember the scene where they finally put like the parts of the bomb together, and they're putting in the last. Oh, that just had me on edge. I love that they didn't rush stuff like that, because they had to be very precise. And we've seen like film reels of them doing that. So it's like you knew that they couldn't rush to put that together. But I just thought that was cool. But yes, one of the things that they definitely took care to represent were how many women, even though there were not many, how many women were in the sciences and engineering, especially working on this project. It was basically, it didn't have anything really to do with your gender. It was basically, were you one of the smartest minds? That's what they wanted, and
And
that's what mattered.
we also saw some scientists push back too. Like it wasn't all like a
Hmm.
happy party, and some of them were like, I'm done. Screw this. I'm out of
I'm done with this crap. I don't want to deal with him. And he's a jerk. Forget it. Screw it. I'm out. I quit. I don't need this.
here.
I forget about him. He's a prima donna. We don't want him on this project anyway. Meg Beast has been looking for people reviewing this. Hubby was asking about it. Trust your opinion. Well, thank you so much, my dear. And yes, this film is worth your time and worth your money. I would say see it in the best fidelity that you can see it in. If you can see it in IMAX, see
Mhm.
it in IMAX. It is truly money well spent. Let's put it that way.
This film is going to be in the theaters for the rest of the year. and it's going to make a lot of money, and it's going to be shown in classrooms for the next 20 or 30 years.
Hmm.
It will be shown,
Absolutely.
there's going to, let's say they're
Absolutely.
going to remove the nude scenes, but for the most part, for the most
Yes.
part, this film will be, there might be like a 2 hour version of it that comes out later on for
Hmm.
students, and this is going to be one of those films they're going to show, and it will become, it's going to be maybe the most popular film, obviously about Oppenheimer, but maybe about, it's historically, it's done so well. The historical figures, as far as I'm concerned, are depicted better in, in a decent way. I certainly don't feel like
Hmm.
things are majorly off or anything like that. I don't even know how Nolan did this. I just don't know how he did it.
I think Nolan pulled out every favor that he had. And not only that, but something of this scale takes a lot of care and a lot of precision to deliver. And I think this is something Nolan's probably been working on for quite some time, and you can tell by the way that it happened. And it is amazing. Absolutely, absolutely amazing, amazing to see. And I agree, this is something that's going to be shown in classes for the longest time, and very welcome, because most kids are like really visual. They're used to a visual medium, and these are people that you only read about. You haven't really seen outside of Albert Einstein. Everybody knows what Einstein is. He's a darn meme now, you know.
Yeah.
One of the original memes that that I
Yes.
that I would say. You have Einstein. This is something that's going to be out there for quite a long time, and yeah, gonna sweep the Oscars. And hopefully there's a family or friendlier version of the sucker. But you take those parts out, you can pretty much let the family, uh, let the family see it. Or do like my relatives would do, send you out of the room and then tell you when you could come back. Oh, you filled out one of those forms too? Yeah, yeah, it is intense. It is yeah, it's intense. The
And
first one is. Then after that I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever.
I also want to say that it is a heavy topic, and it has not been sort of diluted. So, you still get the same level of the seriousness of this film. It is intended to be a film that is going to, weigh on you and make you ponder certain things. So, certainly it
Hmm.
does that too. I don't feel like I've been shortchanged in any way. This is told from, as we've said, someone had said it was maybe the color parts were the real ones and the black and white ones were not, but it's told from the point of view of, I think, two men, Strauss and Oppenheimer, and we see their point of view very specifically in this film.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, the practical effects in this were amazing.
Wow, God, I don't know how they did it. Gosh.
You know what? They probably got the best minds out there uh, to do this. I would love to know what special effects house
Hmm.
did their effects. I'm actually trying to look. I don't think they're going to tell you here in IMDb, but you need to find out who or what effects house did those effects. Those effects are stuff that ILM used to be famous for. ILM or Weta out
Hmm.
in New Zealand. Wouldn't surprise me if it was Weta, but I gotta know. Matter of fact, I'm gonna Google this right now.
Kenneth Branagh and Malik were also in the film. Kenneth Branagh played Niels Bohr, who's, Niels Bohr's version of the atom, which we all, we know. Which he's famous for a lot of things, but that was one of the things he was known for. And
Hmm.
Kenneth Branagh, he's just coming off of winning for Belfast for best screenplay. It might have been a year or last year, but he won the best screenplay for that. So he,
Mm-hmm.
in his own right, is very accomplished, and I think he did a great job with Niels Bohr and Malik. I can't remember the character he plays, but he plays a character that's pivotal because of a vote that takes place, and that character, along with a junior senator from Massachusetts, JFK. Um, uh, is one of the people who votes against something in this, and it is very important, a huge outcome in it. But even something as significant as that, saying that the uh, JFK didn't like something and therefore he voted against this. All of
Mm-hmm.
these things do make a difference. These hearings and the interpretation of events do make a difference. So there, I think it is. I think it was important to show what can happen. Let's say, um, and the
Mm-hmm.
effect that even a few votes can have over someone's life, which is something else. There's so many themes in this, Lorena. I just,
There's an absolute ton of themes. There's so much that are going on. And you know what, Robert, thank you so much for putting that on there, because found this, meet the Australian who helped Christopher Nolan build an atom bomb. So this is Andrew Jackson,
wow.
and he actually did work on Mad Max. Actually, he did work on Mad Max. He did work on Tenet, Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, which I have not seen and I really need to see. So yeah, all three of those that he did in the Trinity test
It's a
largely
masterpiece.
fell to him. It is an absolute masterpiece. And he says Christopher Nolan wanted to do this film without using a CG mushroom cloud simulation. Yeah, so he was the visual effects
Wow.
supervisor on Oppenheimer. He has got to get the Oscar for
It
this. It's
it looks real because it is real.
yes,
So
yes.
impressed with this man, so impressed with what he's given us, and I value this artistry. I think it's worth spending the money to get authenticity. I think it's worth spending the money to get someone who can decide that this is going to be even more stimulating, because I think some of the issue with CGI is that you don't get that same
Hmm.
visual stimulation, and I'm not quite sure whether it's because it's computer generated. I'm not quite sure what the reason is. It so much of it seems very, very close, but I almost feel like sometimes there's a gut feeling where you're like, you didn't have that in this. This looked very real. I thought we were
Yeah.
filming atoms and subatomic particles.
It looked extremely real. They filmed out in actually they filmed in New Mexico. They had permission to shoot at White Sands,
Oh,
but
wow.
that's still an active military base for bombing runs and radar tests. So they went someplace else in New Mexico,
Is it
and
Kirkland? They still have Kirkland. They have a military base there called Kirkland, I think. But there's probably more than one. I can't remember.
mhm, yeah, there probably is. But they said they built a own version of what was there, even the tall steel tower used for Trinity.
Wow.
So you saw the tower,
Mhm.
and the cinematographer. Man, this dude is dope.
So
I love this.
good.
Set up cameras in position simulating the real life observation points. Let me blow this up here for you guys to see a little bit better.
Thank you.
And the crew set off what Jackson remembers as 7 or 8 explosions with high explosives underneath barrels of fuel that were launched skyward to create a mushroom cloud. Holy, I was getting excited. Think about it.
It looked,
Man,
it
oh,
looked
go
like
ahead,
a
my dear.
nuclear explosion.
It really did. I mean, the way that they filmed it, because they used lots of cameras, had a lot of footage because they did it at different frame rates and different lenses. And you can tell in the effect, you have like the first mushroom cloud, and then the reaction starts to kind of eventually slow down. And you see that the clouds are different, and let's say, they even form differently. So That is pretty cool. They shot all the explosions at high speed, then slowed them down, and then brought layers of footage together in post production.
Wow, that must have taken so long to do. Probably months
Dang.
and months just to even get a single frame, even for something
Oh
like
my
this. It must have been
gosh.
amazing and incredibly difficult work. Certainly, there's something to be said for the aesthetic of Jackson here, and we owe it all to him. That aesthetic where it has to look right, and he knows what it's supposed to look like. He knows what these effects are supposed to look like, and
Hmm.
having that aesthetic, Lorraine, where we talk about whether something looks authentic or whether it looks right or whether it feels as if that's what we should be looking at and experiencing. It does take a certain aesthetic for a creator like him to have. He has to have that in him and be able to produce it. It can't just be anyone who thinks, yeah, well, that'll be fine, that'll work, yeah, we can get away with that. It's not about getting away. It's about creating something that is truly a masterpiece. It was remarkable. It's just unbelievable what he did. I'm so glad you showed that because I was completely unaware. I hope he gets something for this for the special effects, for the there's another I think word for some of this stuff like art design or whatever, because he would have to do some of that and to do this. So he says he spent 2 months in special effects supervisors workshop
Hmm.
experimenting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They filmed hundreds of clips. I knew it. I knew it. I
Hundreds
knew it
of
was a lot.
clips to create a library of images,
Mm.
They had to come up with ways of representing everything from subatomic particles to galaxies, including black holes and stars forming. That was cool too. That was
I
absolutely cool.
I had no idea that Oppenheimer, along with let's say another scientist, were if not the original guys to propose the notion of a black hole. One of the original or first individuals to talk about black holes. I had no idea. I mean, I'm not even familiar with a lot of his research. His theories. So I think that was great that we got, this is probably just scratching the surface of everything, but I felt that that was important to mention that not only was he involved in the project, but there are also other discoveries as well as a theorist that should be celebrated
Hmm.
because
Absolutely.
he's one of those scientists that did not win a Nobel Prize, and that this is discussed. This is discussed. There are many scientists who did not get one for various reasons.
Hmm.
And I think in this particular case, for me personally, I think it was because of his something that happens in the film explains why he doesn't
Hmm.
get it because of his essentially harassment for association with the Communist Party, and why he's not as widely recognized. It may not be the only reason, but I think that the movie does imply that this may be one of the reasons. Certainly, I think he should have gotten a prize. We've seen many people get them, and you have to get it while you're alive. It can't be awarded post anonymously. I think it's what it's called. They don't award them unless you're living. I think he would and should have gotten one had
Hmm.
things been different.
Yeah, he got some kind of presidential award that or medal that he got. He didn't get the Nobel Prize, but he got that one. And it's from what I've read, it seemed like that was more for the US government as a way of apologizing
The Medal
than
of Freedom. It
really,
must be the Medal of Freedom,
yeah,
something like that.
instead of you know, outright apologizing. And I believe I read somewhere that they went that the U in I guess in last year the US government went back and looked at what happened in 1954, and they were just like, nah, that really should not have taken place. But just to wrap this up about Jackson, he won an Oscar. Well, he was nominated for an Oscar for Mad Max Fury Road, and he won one for Tenet.
Hmm.
So the visual effects, they were good in Tenet. Just that sound in Tenet, oh my goodness, that was, yeah. It was not.
Misstep.
It
Wasn't
was
it?
It was not good, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that's not that wasn't just me, because I was just like that. That sound was just not working. So we're about to wrap up, but hello, Rodney G says hello, chat. Well, hello, hello, hello. Good to
Yes.
see you here. But yeah, Oppenheimer, this is definitely a film that you want to check out. IMDb says 8.9 out of 10. I still say that it's a 10, at least a 9.9999.
Hmm.
But it's definitely bigger than that. I think the more word of mouth gets out about this film, it's really going to have a lot of longevity.
And if we're going by what's in, let's say, the biography that it's based off of, and not what many people may feel was excluded or should have been in here, we're going solely by the screenplay adaptation. I feel it's a 10 out of 10. So
I
certainly,
agree.
we are not saying, we're not placing judgment on any of the stuff in this. We're simply, I'm simply saying, for this film, which is a
Hmm.
remarkable accomplishment, and not something that I think most people could pull off. I don't think that this is typical of the talent in Hollywood. I think that this is atypical. And, Christopher Nolan has distinguished himself quite a bit, and so have the performers in this film. I think many of these actors and actresses have had fantastic roles. This might be their best roles ever.
I would have to agree. All of them have really just up their game in this one. Matt Damon, Emily Blunt. I mean, Cillian Murphy. I wasn't too familiar with his work until I saw him in Peaky Blinders. Did not know he was Scarecrow in Dark. I had no idea, because I didn't know who he was.
Hmm.
And Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
My goodness,
Yeah.
his performance in this was just it was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna sweep the Oscars with this. Again, this film definitely worth your time. Definitely worth going to see in theaters more than once.
Yes.
Get the best experience you possibly can. Not that it's necessary, but it is actually worth it.
Hmm. I saw it in IMAX, and I wanted to go with Mikey Lito to see it here in New York. There's only one theater that's showing it in IMAX 70 millimeter. So we both saw it in
Mm,
IMAX at different theaters. The 70 millimeter IMAX place is in Lincoln Center, and it's sold out to the, like, practically halfway through August. Theaters are being sold out even in the um,
hmm.
standard
Standard format. Yeah.
format. And to be honest with you, I'm not surprised by this. I think it's going to they're going to extend the theater things after this week, which might be, Lorena, the biggest box office week maybe in history, or in the past few years, maybe the biggest, between the Barbie movie and the
Hmm.
Oppenheimer movie. This might be the biggest box office week we've seen for maybe 10 years even. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't know if I showed you guys. We'll go back over here. The headline on Deadline, which is just the ticker here. Barbie and Oppenheimer fueling mind-blowing 300 million plus US box office weekend, global total at 465
Wow.
million.
It's not even a week.
It's insane. I mean, I knew Barbie was going to make money. That one is what I call very front loaded, especially due to the marketing. But Oppenheimer is the one that is going to stay around with a lot of staying power. It's a more nuanced film. It's a film that is definitely worth your time to see. It's a film that does not waste your time nor insult you as a viewer. If anything, you're kind of like, I'm trying to connect the dots, but I think I missed this, over here. You're so invested in the intrigue and
Mhm.
finding out what's going on, and trying to keep all these different threads together.
And
So
you feel uncomfortable in the right places. You feel the right emotions at the right times in this film as well. There's no like weird things. No, it's perfectly, it, things are perfectly placed for you to have complete understanding of what this film is trying to convey to you. And that is
Mm-hmm.
also something that is very, very rare.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
this film, Lorraine. Yeah, I love it.
See, I do. I love it too. Rodney G says, do you ladies think this will finally shut down the COVID excuse? Between Super Mario Brothers,
Yes.
that movie, um Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, and then with all of this, COVID was, yeah, it wasn't COVID. It was the perceived quality of the film. Make something that people want to see, and people will show up to see it. And I think with Oppenheimer, some people aren't really sure about kind of like what it is or whatever, but from what I've seen with the theaters and what has seen with the theaters, it is a movie with some really long legs on it. And the
If
more people see it and the more word of mouth that gets out, it's gonna make a ton of money.
if this movie went into streaming tomorrow, it would still sell out box office off, office receipts, and would still be in the theaters till December. It would still be
Hmm.
there. People would still go to the movie theater to see it on the big screen. That's the difference.
Hmm. Unexpected Fire. Actually, yeah, I get this. Barbenheimer is no joke. It's been 4 to 5 years since the box office has blown up, but Barbie will drop off hard. Yes, but how hard is the question? I'm I'm just throwing it out there. I'm thinking that it's going to drop by at least 60% when word gets out. That's why it's so front loaded with the marketing. That's why there's so much merchandise that's out there. They're trying to get their money up front. But I think that's going to be a flash in the pan and it's just going to
Hmm.
drop off. Oppenheimer has
Hmm.
much more staying power and frankly a wider audience reach as well.
Absolutely. And for those of us, and I have a feeling you're included in this, Lorena, you and I are going to buy Barbies regardless of anything else. So, like, we were
Yeah.
going to buy that merchandise. There's a pop
Mhm.
up store here in New York. I'm probably going to go to that store at some point, a cafe. So, it's not even about that. Regardless, I'm going to buy whatever I want that's Barbie. We've had Barbies our whole lives. So this is very
Mhm.
different. It is a market and it is an item, but it is make believe, everybody. And I cannot stress how I just cannot even think about it in the same context of the importance of the Oppenheimer film, which is going to kind of define and be the educator for so many people who know absolutely nothing about this stuff. There's a lot of people going in there that don't know anything about this.
No, who have no clue, but what's wrapping them up is, who is this man? Who is this man? Why is the government seeming to quote unquote persecute him? Yet we see that all this stuff depends on this guy. So it's like a mystery at the same time, and you want to know why. This movie does a perfect job of, why should I keep watching? Why should I care about Oppenheimer? They make you care about
Yes.
all of these
And
characters.
And there's a famous line in the film, Lorena, and I know you know the one where Oppenheimer is sort of like in this interrogation, and as they're everything's unfolding, and like it's not a spoiler. He doesn't get the security clearance, right? It's not That's not, everybody knows this already, but it's the part where the guy says, "What do you think?" And he says, "I'm wondering if one day the truth will come out about all of this." And of course, this is
Hmm.
the day, right? This
Yeah.
is the day as you're watching the film.
Hmm.
Um, that's the type of brilliance. Even if you've never even heard of any of this and you've watched it, you're like, oh my gosh, what an incredible story, because it is an incredible story.
It's a very incredible story. For real. Planet Killer, hello, says can't stay long, ladies. We're actually starting to I should try to wrap up.
Mhm.
Just because I avoid all movie talk before watching, I'll see this after I see the movie. I like video, thank you. But how long is that sex scene? Does it go by quick? It's not long,
There's
really.
there's two. kind of sections. And to be honest with you, it's a natural sex scene, and it's not sort of okay. I guess it's explicit, but it's not outrageous. It's really just intimacy between Oppenheimer and Florence Pugh's character. There's another scene where there's another nude scene, but that's because it's a point where Emily Blunt, who plays Oppenheimer's wife, this is how I interpret it right now.
Mm-hmm.
They are revealing every indiscretion that he's had. And at that time in the United States, for people to know and to put on the record that he'd been kind of having these indiscretions was a huge embarrassment to Emily Blunt. And that's why they had that scene where Florence Pugh was literally on top of him in the room, because it's so horrifying and just disappointing to Emily Blunt for everybody in the United States and practically the earth to know that her husband was doing this. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a betrayal, such a letdown. And that's what that scene, to me, because they focus on Emily Blunt so much and you can see her watching. It's about what she's imagining. And of course, it's devastating. It's a devastating moment to her. And it looks devastating. You're like, oh my God, why are they? Oh, it's because this is what his wife is seeing. And she knows,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows that her husband did this. And it's not like your parents know and your sister knows. Everybody on earth knows about it. It was a matter of public record. It's recorded in the court of law, right? It would be recorded, maybe even, Lorena. Everybody knows this secret, and it's an embarrassment at that time in the United States, especially for a woman
Mm-hmm.
to have to go. That's how I interpreted that nude scene. What did you think? Do you think that's it?
It's, I would say, and this is just me. Didn't feel that it was needed for the film. However, the way that it was used, it didn't seem out of place. So that's kind of like how I looked at it, especially given how he met her, how he met his mistress, you know, how they quote unquote connected. She's like, "Stop bringing me flowers. No, don't bring me flowers. I don't want you to bring me
I think
flowers."
she was married to somebody else at the time. So this
Yeah, she was, and it was, it was one of those things like I can't quit you, but I don't want you to go to anyone else. Like when he tells her that he's getting married and you see that she's absolutely, flipping devastated. So this isn't like it was just thrown in one night stand, whatever. No, that really was not the case at all. And especially the scene where they're in there with for that security review, which granted it's not a court of law, but there's certain information that they need to know, and that's what they wanted to clarify, so to speak. And with that information out there, and again, Emily Blunt's character is there, Kitty, and she's hearing her. It's one thing to hear other people say that your husband is having an affair. It's different when your husband is recounting it, admitting that that happened. And that's a very human thing that she would think that.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So it's not it's one of those things where it's like, okay, granted the movie is rated R. So when it's a rated R movie, 9 times out of 10 there's probably going to be sex in it, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not I
Ingredients.
would say yes. Yes, it's not egregious. It's like, oh yeah, we just threw that in there. No, it wasn't thrown in. There was an emotional component that was in there. So much so that, let's just say, something else that happens, you understand why it affects Oppenheimer the way that it does.
Yes.
So that's what happened. That's what happened there. Let's see. One more thing before we wrap up. Rodney G says, I appreciate you giving your honest opinion on the Barbie movie. Men need more women to stick up for us. Well, you are very welcome. I gave my honest opinion. Some people felt some kind of way that I should have rated it lower than I did. And that's why I have two ratings. I have an unbiased rating, which I just base it based on what it is that I'm shown. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. My biased review was a 3 out of 10. So yeah, I'm beholden to no one. My opinion and $2 will not buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but I call it as it is, and I'm very glad to stick up for y'all. No problem, no problem. My pleasure, my pleasure. Oh my gosh, you know what? I could talk about this movie longer than we have time for, because it is truly an amazing film.
Lorena, I think you and I haven't even scratched the surface of this, and we haven't even talked about the science. And I think once you read the book, you and I need to do a review of the Pulitzer Prize winning biography. We do,
Absolutely.
because there's so much
Absolutely.
science in it for someone who's, because we're both into science, I think, and anybody else who's interested into science would love to. It's just fun to talk about it. So yeah, and thank you for having me here. I enjoyed
Oh,
every single minute of talking about this extraordinary film. Thank you so much for letting me do this review with you.
oh, well, you are welcome, and I'm so glad that you could make it tonight, because I love doing this stuff with you. So I'm so glad you could make it. So folks, please, please, please do me a favor. Please do subscribe to her of Positive Fandom and the Burn Network. Do you want to let the people know what you have coming up on your channel?
Yes, on my channel, guys, I'm going to have my Sunday brunch show tomorrow morning. Yes, on Positive Fandom, which is my channel. I'm also going to have our show on Monday night at 6 p.m. Lorena, ladies of the PGS. Oh, it's not on my channel, it's on the Burn Network. On the Burn Network, obviously. I'm also going to be doing a review of Barbie at some point tomorrow on the Burn Network as well. And I'm also going to be reviewing a movie called The Sound of Freedom. Lorena, have you seen this film?
I have not. It's one of those where I'm trying to get around to seeing it. I'm probably going to be the last person on earth to see it, and I'm kind of mad because everything else has been getting in the way, but I want to see it. I want to support it. It is just amazing how much, not only how much money that movie is making, but just the types of things that are being brought to light because of that film when it comes to human trafficking, a heavy subject, but a very important subject. So I can't wait to see it. It's one of those movies where it's like, I gotta see it, I gotta see it, I gotta see it, I gotta see it. So
Well,
yeah.
if you see the film before Monday night, you're welcome to join me on the Burn Network and on Positive Fandom for the review of the film coming up. And as I mentioned, I am going to be reviewing, I think it's called Fat Man and Little Boy. I think I'm saying that right. But I'm also going to be reviewing Anthropoid, which is the Cillian Murphy film I was telling you about.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming up on, I'm going to have that on the Burn Network and on Positive Fandom too at the same time. So for the Atomic films and some of the Cillian Murphy stuff, it's going to be on both, guys. And
Hmm.
then of course we're gonna have the Outlander series come back here. We got 2 episodes to catch up on, Lorena. We'll do as many as we can, but live Outlander watch party, which you and I enjoy so much. As well. PGS Treks will be back. And of course, Musings as well. Lorena, there's so much going on. And I think this is an example tonight of, we didn't need a whole bunch of films. We just needed the high quality film that we got
Hmm.
here. And it makes all the difference.
It absolutely, absolutely does. So, folks, please do go subscribe to her. She's got so much stuff going on on her channel. As for your girl, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern is the Welcome to Florida show, which I have on my channel with my co-host Culture Casino. We just have fun looking at just craziness about the second craziest state in the union, which is Florida. And of course, this week, since it's, well, it'll be next week actually, since it's going to be Shark Week, in Florida, every week is Shark Week. So you know, you need to come find out all the crazy, crazy Florida man and sharks stories that we can fit into a 90-minute show. So you have to come out, check that out. Of course, Monday I will be on Ladies of the PGS. So you can go ahead and check that out. Our Toxic Male Appreciation Show. We may have to record a little bit earlier for that, but that is definitely going to be coming out. I'm excited about who we're going to feature. It's going to be a surprise. We're going to let you guys find out later about that. Let's see. Wednesday. Oh gosh, it's actually a light week for me. So Friday on your channel, and Saturday morning I will be at Epcot for the Food and Wine Festival. It is the opening weekend, so I'm going to be out there checking out some of the food offerings and the drink offerings
Ooh.
that they will have. So I'm going to go and check that out. And Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'm hoping can join me. We're having a watch party for Disney's Aladdin.
Oh, yeah,
So
me
you gotta
too.
come. You gotta come and check that out. We had so much fun with the Beauty and the Beast one. We're kind of going through the Renaissance Disney animated films. So we hope that you can come out and join us for that. So thank you, Rodney G, for subscribing. I sure do appreciate it. Rebecca says, do I have to roll my R's when I pronounce her name?
It is entirely up to you. You can roll them or not. I just appreciate you being here and being so kind to us, and such a pleasure to spend time with you tonight.
Yes, absolutely. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Definitely go and check out Oppenheimer. If you're watching this on the replay and you're like, I wanted to see the movie first, let us know in the comments what you think of the Oppenheimer film. And are you like us and thinking that this film is going to sweep the Oscars next year? We would just love to hear from you one way or the other. So, everyone, have an amazing, amazing rest of your evening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.